Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on healthier flooring options available through the statewide contract MRO001. I'm Susan Allpole, Events Manager here at OSD. Also from OSD is Miriam Stein, who will be monitoring the chat today. And before we begin, just letting you know, as you heard, we are recording this presentation. We do ask that you keep webcams off and audio on mute unless you're presenting. And just a reminder that the state policy forbids the use of AI-based transcription or recording devices by any participants on Commonwealth calls. And we do ask that you submit questions using the chat feature, and we will respond to the questions at the end of today's presentation. Tomorrow, I will forward a copy of the presentation and a link to the recording to all attendees. And with that, I'd like to welcome Julia Wolf, our Director of Environmental Purchasing.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm Julia Wolf. I am the Director of Environmental Purchasing at the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Operational Services Division. And we're just so thrilled to have all of you join us for this webinar on healthier flooring options through the OSD statewide contract MRO001, and that's for carpet and flooring. And before we dive in, I just want to give you a quick overview of the Operational Services Division. We're the Commonwealth office that sets up and manages statewide master contracts for goods and services for all public entities. Some nonprofits can also use our contracts as well. And if you are joining from another state, you may be eligible to use our contract as well. So just reach out to us directly and we can discuss any type of eligibility requirements. So today's agenda includes a quick overview of the contract and its environmental requirements, followed by the bulk of our webinar on choosing healthier flooring options, and also why these selections matter. So I'm just going to introduce our speakers right now. We'll go through that list and then we will get started. So Richard Levesque is a category manager at OSD, and he will introduce you to the contract. I'll be covering the environmental requirements, and then we're delighted to have Judy Levin from the Center for Environmental Health and Ryan Johnson from Habitable, and I believe that was formerly the Healthy Building Network, if I'm right. And they'll go into detail on issues with polyvinyl chloride or PVC. Oh, is somebody not muted? If you could make sure to mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. So they'll go into detail on issues with polyvinyl chloride, or as I said, PVC, which a lot of today's flooring is made from. And then we'll discuss healthy alternatives. So we hope to have a few minutes at the end for questions and answers. And as Susan said, the presentation is recorded and we'll share with everyone who registered for the webinar. Okay, so I'm going to pass this over to Rich to get us started.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody's having a great day, and thank you so much for coming to our webinar. So here we have a quick overview of MRO001. It breaks down the contract terms and the scope. So we have the contract details below here. The effective start date was this contract started back in July of 2025, and it only has one term. It'll be running till June 30th, 2030. There are no renewal options for this, so we'll have to rebid the whole contract when that time comes. So the maximum end date is 5 years out. There are 3 contract categories on this contract, and they are listed below here. In the next slide, we're going to get a little into them further, but as you can see, they're there. Could you, next slide, please? So as you saw on the last page, category 1, carpet products. So this is products only. So this category contains products such as broadloom, carpet tile, other related products and accessories. Category 2 covers hard surface flooring products, and this is products only as well. The products in this category include types of resilient floorings, some of which are listed there, ceramic tile, as well as wood flooring, and that gets into different types as well. Laminate flooring, stone-related products, as well as all the accessories related to these other hard flooring products. Category 3, which covers installation, maintenance, and repair services. This is a service-only category. This category is for construction, reconstruction, alteration, installation, demolition, maintenance, and repair services, if needed, the associated materials. This category also includes a turnkey service option. Next slide, please. So category 1, as you saw, was carpet products. So in this category, all carpet products in this category must offer a 10-year warranty from the date of the certificate of agency use and occupancy was issued. Another thing with this category is manufacturers and sellers are responsible for the replacements that do not comply with specifications or that fail within the specified warranty period. Next slide. So here, this goes over a little bit of category 2, hard surface flooring products. All products in this category must meet or exceed all federal, state, and local standards or regulations. All products also must have a minimum warranty as standard to the industry. Next slide. So category 3, the installation, maintenance, and repair services. The vendors on this category must be an authorized dealer or distributor for the flooring products that they're offering for turnkey service. Vendors must be awarded on category 1, carpet, or category 2 flooring products, and must be an authorized dealer or distributor for the awarded manufacturer. Services must comply with all product specifications in category 1 and 2, and vendors must conduct a site inspection if requested by an eligible entity at no charge to quote the project. Next slide, please. And here we're going to pass this off to Julia. She's going to take over and go over some of the mandatory environmental specifications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rich. Thanks for going through that. So now I'm going to dive into, as Rich said, the environmental requirements we set for this contract. And the Commonwealth, we have an environmentally preferable products or EPP program. We've had one for over 30 years. And in 2009, Executive Order 515 was signed. And this requires executive agencies to prioritize purchases of EPPs. It directs our EPP program to work with our category management staff at OSD, like Rich, and to set minimum environmental specifications. So for this contract, what we did is we incorporated disclosure requirements, some mandatory and desirable requirements, and requirements for products to meet certain third-party certifications or standards. I'll go over these in the next few slides. And if you want to see the full specs, we included a link here for the specification document in the PowerPoint. Next slide, please. So our specification document begins with this table directing buyers to preferred, acceptable, and avoid or exclude flooring types. You'll see this table again in Judy and Ryan's portion of their presentation, and it actually has a little bit of an expanded portion to it. Next slide, please. So the contract requires vendors to disclose all environmental third-party certifications and standards in their price sheets. And for hard surface flooring, they must disclose whether there's formaldehyde, if there's a sustainable forest management certification like FSC, or if the product is a luxury vinyl tile. And then for adhesives, vendors have to disclose if the product contains formaldehyde or PFAS, polyfluoroalkyl substances, or have a Proposition 65 warning. And then also whether it's in an aerosol container. So this really, the disclosures allow buyers to make informed decisions about what they're purchasing. Next slide, please. So we also require that products meet at least one third-party certification or standard, or be able to provide third-party testing showing that the product meets the California Department of Public Health specifications for VOCs. So now I'm going to just quickly go through the requirements for carpet, flooring, adhesives, and carpet padding. Next slide, please. So all carpet is required to have an EPD, environmental product declaration, or a health product declaration. And these are kind of like ingredient labels for products that assist buyers in choosing healthier options. Carpet should be free from materials that are listed here on the left. I'm not going to actually read those out. And please note that we do have an exception for PVC that I'll go over just in a later slide. Products should not have a Proposition 65 warning, no intentionally added PFAS, flame retardants, or antimicrobials, and should be solution dyed. And then to the right, you're going to see multi-attribute third-party certifications and standards and certified low-emitting standards. So carpet must meet at least one of these. And when we prepared for this bid, we worked very closely with the Responsible Purchasing Network to conduct a market assessment of these certifications and found that combined, there were hundreds of options available. Next slide, please. So resilient flooring is somewhat similar. Its requirements for the first couple of the bullets, but it has some additional desirables. Also, resilient flooring must meet at least one of the third-party certifications or standards listed to the right. Next slide. This one is for adhesive, same thing, and products must meet at least one of the certifications or standards to the right. And then lastly, carpet cushion, same thing. So I just wanted to quickly show you what those requirements were. All right, next slide. So Judy and Ryan, they're going to be diving into a detailed discussion on PVC in their presentation, but our sourcing team developed some restrictions on PVC for this contract. PVC can be used for maintenance or repair if it doesn't exceed 40% of the total surface area of the project. And if more than 40%, it's considered new installation and should not use PVC. Luxury vinyl tile, one of the newer vinyl flooring products, must be disclosed in all of our pro sheets. There's a lot more discussion happening with buyers, manufacturers, installers, and others, and more research that is needed on luxury vinyl tile. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Commonwealth's Toxic Reduction Task Force, which is a subcommittee of Executive Order 515, and we will be working on evaluating criteria for LVT over the life of the contract. All right, next slide, quickly. How to use this contract. The best way to learn more about this contract is to read the contract user guide. And these are the OSD buying guides that review terms, benefits, exclusions, etc. It also has a list of all of the vendors and their contact information at the end. So next slide. So to find products, we recommend navigating to that vendor section of the contract user guide and selecting the links for each vendor under the master blanket purchase order number. This will bring you to that vendor's price file. Next slide. And then lastly, here's a list of all of the vendors that have been awarded on this contract. So we just wanted to make sure to show you who is on the contract, what vendors there are. All right, so that is all for me right now. I'm going to hand it over to Judy Levin from the Center for Environmental Health. Thank you, Judy.
There we go. Okay. Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you for everyone for being here. I'm Judy Levin with the Center for Environmental Health, and I'm really happy to be able to speak with you. The Center for Environmental Health, or CEH, is a private nonprofit organization, and our mission is to protect people from exposure to toxic chemicals. And one of the ways that we do that is through our purchasing program, where we partner with large purchasers like city or state governments, schools and universities, private businesses, and more to promote the purchase of more sustainable products in the areas of foodware, flooring, which is what we're doing today, and furniture. Next slide. Oh, next slide, sorry. There we go. Next slide. Can we go one more slide? Okay, Ryan.
Well, thanks, Judy. Yeah, I'm Ryan Johnson. I'm a senior researcher for Habitable, and we are formerly known as Healthy Building Network. And if you're not familiar with us, we're a nonprofit organization that has been working for about 26 years to advance human health and equity, in particular as it relates to the built environment. I personally have a background in chemistry and public health, so I spend a lot of my time researching building materials and helping to develop our guidance around them.
Next slide. And the next slide. Okay, great. So luxury vinyl tile, or LVT, is a huge part of what is currently being used as resilient flooring. Some estimates are that LVT accounts for half of all resilient flooring sold. And the manufacturers tout its merits as being inexpensive, attractive, and easy to maintain. And you can see the industry's projection for their product, moving from 33 billion in 2026 to over 53 billion by 2035 in just 9 years. Big growth. Next slide. But luxury vinyl tile is really just a clever term created by marketers to make vinyl chlorine products sound very desirable and of higher quality than what it really is, which is just multiple layers of cheap vinyl plastic made from fossil fuels. Whether it's produced domestically or overseas, all LVT involves the use of toxic chemicals which are emitted into the environment, and PVC is produced using carbon-intensive processes which then create potent greenhouse gases. And these toxics don't stay in place. They migrate to places far from the manufacturing site. So there's really nothing luxurious about it. Next slide. Oh, excuse me. I'll just go ahead. Additionally, PVC is not biodegradable and it persists in the environment for hundreds of years, and it breaks down into microplastics. And as the flooring ages and wears, and it's exposed to UV light, and these get into our bodies and the environment. And further, the recycling of PVC plastic is very problematic, and you'll hear more about that from Ryan later. Next slide. Great. So PVC is really more problematic than any other flooring option because it's hazardous at every stage of its life cycle, from the extraction of the raw materials to the manufacturing to the transportation, installation, use, and at end of life. All of these present environmental and health concerns, and we're just going to go briefly through some of them. Next slide. So PVC is particularly toxic because its two main building blocks are a known human carcinogen, vinyl chloride, and a probable human carcinogen, ethylene dichloride. And these chemicals, in addition to carcinogens, are also known to cause reproductive harm, developmental harm in children, asthma, obesity, and it's also a very highly flammable and explosive material. And unlike other plastics, PVC reduction requires the use of one of 3 toxic chemicals. You may be surprised to see their names: asbestos, a known human carcinogen; mercury, a potent neurotoxin that's hazardous, especially to pregnant women and young children; and third, PFAS chemicals, which are toxic and persistent hormone-disrupting chemicals that stay in the environment for eons and don't break down into safer chemicals. So PVC manufacturing requires one of these 3 harmful options. There's no clean or luxurious way to produce this material. Next slide. And PVC also exposes workers to a myriad of harmful chemicals with serious health effects. Since 2010, there have been at least 930 chemical releases during manufacturing and processing of PVC. And PVC dust is also recognized as an occupational asthma trigger through exposure to the PVC dust. Unfortunately, excuse me for 1 second. I want to make sure if it's the next slide or not. No. Factory accidents are very common. Fires, spills, chemical releases occur regularly, as we said, more than 930 chemical incidents. And a report by Habitable actually found that PVC facilities have a very poor history of compliance with US EPA regulations. More than a third of them violated regulations like the Clean Air Act or the Clean Water Act every single quarter during a 3-year period. And while the majority of LVT production, much of it has shifted to the Asia Pacific region, but even there, protections for workers are very limited, environmental regulations are lax, and wages are far less than in the United States. Next slide. So in 2022, the Center for Environmental Health did a report about the PVC's carbon emissions and found that the environmental product declarations, the things produced by manufacturers, actually greatly underestimated LVT's carbon footprint for between 8 to 27% for US made products, but by 171 to 180% for products made in China, where coal is used as a raw material and also as a power source, and mercury is also used. So one very tangible way that you can reduce the carbon footprint of your organization is to eliminate the use of LVT and plastic flooring. Next slide. So people in buildings with PVC can face exposure to harmful chemicals from PVC's use of phthalates or heavy metals, and also through exposure to PVC dust, the microplastics, installation adhesives, and potentially floor cleaners. And while many manufacturers have moved away from the worst additives, product testing and manufacturers' own EPDs or health product declarations, have shown that phthalates are still present in some vinyl flooring. And these chemicals aren't chemically bound to the PVC. So they migrate out of the flooring into dust and air, creating exposure to us through inhalation and ingestion. Since about 2015, some manufacturers have shifted to phthalate-free alternatives, but the health impacts of these substitutes really aren't fully yet understood. And while recycling is generally a sustainability benefit, the use of recycled content in flooring products can create an exposure to a variety of toxic chemicals that have been historically used. So if manufacturers are reporting the use of recycled materials, you should ask them to explain how do they ensure that these materials are free of toxic chemicals. Next slide. Despite industry claims, PVC flooring recycling is extremely limited, and Ryan will talk about that later. So without viable recycling, PVC flooring ends up either being landfilled or incinerated. And when PVC is landfilled, these toxic chemicals release from the flooring and leach into our air, soil, and groundwater. And these landfills are disproportionately located in low-income communities and communities of color, exposing already burdened populations to yet more additional health risks. And incineration, by burning waste products, you can create significant greenhouse gases. And when PVC in particular is burned, it can release powerful carcinogens called dioxins and furans, and as well as other toxic byproducts that get in our air, soil, and water. And like landfills, 85% of waste incinerators are located in environmental justice communities. And an interesting side fact is that Massachusetts is reported to be one of the 5 states with the highest number of incinerators. Also, the International Association of Firefighters supports PVC alternatives because fires involving PVC endanger firefighters, the building occupants, and nearby communities. The IAFF states, due to intrinsic hazards, we support efforts to identify and use alternative building materials that do not pose as much of a risk as PVC. Next slide. At any given moment, 36 million pounds of vinyl chloride travels on 200 rail cars across the United States railways, putting 3 million Americans within 1 mile of these routes at risk. And since 1968, there have been at least 29 derailments, one every 2 years. And some of you may remember when in 2023, a train carrying vinyl chloride and other hazardous chemicals derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. It was an environmental nightmare, and it led to the release of almost 850,000 pounds of toxic chemicals into the air for days, sickening residents, first responders, killing wildlife, and contaminating East Palestine and the surrounding communities. But despite these repeated failures of our outdated railway system from carrying toxic chemicals, few steps have been taken by lawmakers, and flammable vinyl chloride continues to roll through communities who've already been polluted by this chemical. Next slide. So the question I really want to ask is, PVC is cheap, but for whom? So when you purchase LVT flooring, normally you're considering just the product cost, the installation, maintenance, end of life costs. But other costs are being paid for by workers and low-income communities and communities of color where these facilities are located. So let's look at those. Imagine what the price for LVT would be if we actually included the hidden costs now being paid by communities in the global environment. How can we ignore the public health costs when residents are exposed to toxic chemicals through the air they breathe and the water they drink? These cumulative exposures create life-threatening health risks and generate enormous medical costs by affected families, and those costs are borne by the families and public health systems, not the polluters. Next slide. Oh, excuse me, go back one. And also we need to consider homeowners whose property values have collapsed in contaminated communities, trapping residents who can't afford to move and destroying their primary source of wealth, their homes. And our environmental cleanup costs fall on taxpayers, not the polluters, with many sites remaining contaminated for decades. And PVC production is carbon intensive, fueling climate change, and that's a cost borne globally, but hitting hardest people who are least responsible for the emissions. So none of these costs appear in the product price. So when agencies specify LVT, they're unknowingly subsidizing an industry that externalizes its true costs onto the most vulnerable communities. Next slide. So all 12 US vinyl chloride facilities are concentrated in just 3 states, Texas, Louisiana, and Kentucky. And that's not coincidental. These communities also have higher percentages of children, people of color, and limited English speakers than the rest of the United States. And they're frequently clustered with other industrial sites in areas with lax environmental regulations and communities with less resources to fight the facilities being sited in their area. And perhaps the most devastating example of this type of environmental injustice is Cancer Alley, which is an 85-mile stretch along the Mississippi River, where communities exist alongside approximately 200 petrochemical plants. Cancer Alley has the highest cancer risk from any industrial air pollution in the United States, more than, I've heard, 7 times the national average, and some estimates far higher than that. And due to LVT's growing popularity, more facilities are requesting permits in these already overburdened communities, and some of those permits are being approved. Next slide. I believe this goes to Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Judy. So Judy's covered a number of reasons why we recommend that people avoid using vinyl flooring or really PVC in any building material where they can. And the good news is that safer products do exist. I just want to define safer, though. When I say safer, it's just important to remember that we've heard a lot about vinyl or about PVC. Really all products are going to have impacts from the extraction of the raw materials to the manufacturing of the products to the installation and their use and their end of life. So by safer, what we're talking about is we're talking about reducing these impacts. And, it's just, unfortunately, vinyl just happens to have impacts across every single stage of the life cycle here that are pretty significant. So when we specify products, we do have an opportunity to shift markets away from the most harmful products and technologies towards products that have lower impacts. Next slide. And a great example of that is something that Kaiser Permanente did. So in 2002, Kaiser Permanente, they put out a challenge to the market to create a PVC-free carpet. At the time, pretty much all carpet, I believe, had a vinyl backing in it. And certainly a lot of carpet today still does have vinyl backings. But because of Kaiser's influence, they were able to drive innovation. And not only were they able to get a PVC-free carpet, but then PVC-free carpet became available to the whole market. So again, while you can still buy carpet that has PVC backing, people do now have other options. And Massachusetts' decision to restrict PVC flooring in their contracts is really another powerful messages that we're sending to the industry that we really do want healthier products that do not harm human health and the environment. And hopefully this will help move the needle in making more affordable, healthier flooring options available to the general public. Next slide. So again, when I talk about healthier options, what specifically am I referring to? So at Habitable, we do spend a lot of time researching the chemicals that go into the materials that we're putting into our buildings. And then we use this information to assess chemical hazards that are likely present at all those stages, manufacturing, installation, product use, end of life. And then we rank product types from green to red. And we tell people to get out of the red, but prefer products that are green and yellow. And this is what you would call our material health guidance. When you look at this list on this page, you might have different needs depending on the space. I recognize that a hospital is going to have very different needs for flooring than a residential setting might have. But there are a lot of options that are not in the red. So I also want to note that this is our existing guidance. We will be releasing an update in the next couple of weeks. That said, what is currently preferred is going to stay in the preferred section. Biological materials like linoleum or solid wood, engineered wood, and also mineral-based materials like ceramic tiles, provided that they don't have lead or PFAS in them. What is currently in the avoid section will also be remaining in that avoid section, and that includes things like vinyl flooring or rubber flooring containing tire derived from rubber. Next slide. Here's just a quick preview of some materials that we'll be adding. We have been getting a lot of requests to rank some of these product types, and there's just a couple things I want to highlight. Polyurethane resilient flooring, that's actually in our current guidance. It's not new, but it's a type of PVC-free resilient flooring that is still out of the red, but there's some bigger human health hazards that we've just identified throughout its life cycle than there are for other types of PVC-free resilient flooring. And this applies to products that even if they're using things like castor oil or some other vegetable oil, sometimes you might see these called bio-based polyurethane. Those still have a number of human health hazards throughout their life cycle. So those will still remain orange. But again, this is out of the red. In addition, some folks have been really excited about something called liquid linoleum. Unfortunately, this is basically a fluid applied polyurethane floor. It's actually about 25% polyurethane plastic, which if you want to compare that to regular linoleum sheet and tile, that contains essentially no plastic. So, not only does this mean that this product being 25% polyurethane is going to have some upstream life cycle concerns that we'd be concerned about, but there's also some additional concerns for installation teams since it's applied in racks on site. Next slide. I do want to note that currently our informed guidance includes human health impacts. It does not really assess global warming potential or embodied carbon. That said, we do have some collaborative research that we've done with the architecture firm Perkins and Will in the past to do an overlay of some of our guidance with embodied carbon data. And one of the categories that we've looked at is flooring. So here's just a little look at the results of the flooring analysis. And what you find is what you might expect. There are some areas where our material health guidance and opportunities to reduce embodied carbon don't necessarily align. You see like ceramic tile and wool carpet end up getting not looking quite as good from an embodied carbon perspective, but those are both product types that we would recommend from a material health perspective. However, there are materials that limit human health impacts like wood and cork and linoleum, and these also have very low embodied carbon as well. So the point is that while material health and embodied carbon guidance might not always align, there are opportunities where both can be optimized in the same product type. Next slide. And I think I'm passing it back to Judy here.
Thank you, Ryan. So when the Center for Environmental Health and Healthcare Without Harm set out to help purchasers find healthier flooring, we've felt that there was a gap. While there were single attribute eco labels for things like indoor air quality, we felt that flooring lacked a robust multi-attribute standard that was addressing the full range of concerning chemicals and materials. And we know purchasers prefer third-party standards that are rigorous to help vet claims made by manufacturers and to identify healthier products. And that's exactly what the Green Health Approved Seal was created for, to make your job easier. And the seal isn't just for healthcare, really, it applies to any organization that benefits from, finding healthier products. Okay, next slide. So these are the criteria that were used of chemicals of concern and materials to be avoided. And you'll see there's many. The ones in black without the asterisks are those found in flooring materials, resilient flooring. And then the ones in green with the asterisk are those that are more unique to carpeting. So we wanted to try to cover all of them. Thank you. Next slide. So to date, 5 manufacturers have registered products to this standard. It's important to know that only specific lines may meet this requirement, so it's not all of their offerings, and you'll see below the names of the Green Health approved lines that are available. And the next slide. And carpet manufacturers, there's 4 currently that have products that comply with the Green Health approved seal. Again, only certain lines meet their requirements, not their entire product lines, but still these companies are being leaders. And so we encourage you to use your power. And when you talk with manufacturers, express your preference for Green Health approved products and ask why other lines have not been improved. And when you do that, you're actually incentivizing companies to develop compliant offerings. And then you're also expanding healthier options for everyone. And the next slide, I believe, goes back to Ryan.
Yeah, so there's a number of other factors that can help minimize the material health impacts of flooring. And really, we have to look at the unique needs of each space. And, maybe there's a material that has bigger human health impacts that you're just really struggling to get away from. In those cases, you might be able to just see if you can limit its use to just the space of the building where you absolutely need it. Going to that second bullet point, right size, if you can get away with using less material in a space that is going to get less traffic, for instance, that might be a consideration. That might mean specifying a thinner floor covering. I'll touch on maintenance and installation in a little bit, so I'm going to skip that bullet point for now. Ergonomics and acoustic considerations certainly are going to impact flooring choices, though there are other variables that you're going to need to consider in addressing these as well. And then certainly replacing flooring can disrupt business during installation. So really choosing timeless products with longevity will also hopefully can prevent disruption of normal operations if you are having to replace the floor less frequently. Next slide. All right, so let's say a little bit more about choosing products with longevity. I will say getting good data on how long flooring products actually stay in buildings before they are replaced are generally pretty hard to come by. Here's some data that we've compiled from a number of different sources that at least estimate service life, but you'll see that they can vary quite a bit, and the ranges are huge in some cases. In some cases, it's harder to find data in specific sectors. Carpet, by and large, is going to have the shortest service life. This is actually one of the reasons why it gets ranked lower in our product guidance. Resilient flooring is estimated to last a little bit longer. Some options like ceramic tile or even polished concrete, they're likely to last even longer. And this, again, would just, when you're reducing the frequency with which you're replacing a product, that can help reduce the life cycle impacts of whatever material you're choosing. Planning ahead and picking a product that is timeless and durable can also reduce the impacts of whatever material you're choosing. Next slide. We also need to think about installation. We do have some guidance on installation. Here's our green to red guidance for flooring installation. Big picture, avoiding adhesives will reduce the use of hazardous chemicals in general. Interlocking tiles can be good in terms of reducing hazards that people are exposed to, or floating floors. These often have a layer of composite wood that might introduce some hazards, but they're generally still a pretty good option. Just note that sometimes those floating floors can include a core layer that has vinyl in it. So it's just good to ask about what is in those click tiles or those floating floors. Make sure that you're not choosing things that have vinyl in them. Peel and stick adhesives, they usually contain fewer hazards than other wet applied adhesives. Next slide. when we think about maintenance, I would say less is more. Anywhere that you can reduce the use of floor strippers or sealers, floor finishes, you're going to reduce chemical exposures. And that might mean installing track mats to reduce dirt and debris tracked into the facility. For stone, tile, grout, and really any type of cementitious flooring material, the thing you want to remember here is to only seal it if and when necessary, and avoid sealers labeled oil repelling when you can, because those are the ones that typically contain PFAS, those forever chemicals. And we really want to avoid those. Next slide. Oops. Give me a second here. Okay. For floor cleaners, when considering floor cleaners, we do recommend that people choose products that meet US EPA's safer choice criteria or that are certified to green seal standards like GS40. In addition to these standards, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts also recommends products certified to UL's Eco logo and the state of Massachusetts standard FAC 118. Now, I'm not as familiar with these latter two standards, so I can't necessarily speak to them, but the idea is really the same. There's a lot of hazardous content that can end up in cleaning products. These certifications are really trying to help you get away from some of the worst things that we know about that can end up in them. There are some additional steps you can take whether or not a product has a certification. And one of those is to avoid products with fragrances, which can just really add unnecessary chemicals that you don't need to be exposed to. Avoid products with ammonia. Certainly ammonia can be acutely toxic, and most of you probably know that it can also release deadly gas if accidentally mixed with bleach, which is another chemical that you definitely want to avoid. Avoid aerosols. These can introduce greenhouse gases or chemicals made using greenhouse gases into the environment. And really at the end of the day, a lot can be done with neutral cleaners and detergents and water. Next slide. Disinfectants. These are often unnecessary. And again, I realize that you're going to have different needs depending on the type of building that you're looking at. But when you can avoid them, it's often a good idea because, but if you can't, you can use disinfectants certified to the US EPA's Design for the Environment program. Again, this just avoids some of the worst chemicals. If that's not possible, avoid fragrances again. Look for products using safer ingredients. Hydrogen peroxide can be very effective. Some products include things like citric acid. But again, always avoid bleach. And these quaternary ammonium compounds mentioned in this last bullet point, this covers a number of different chemicals that show up in disinfectants, a lot of disinfectants that you can just buy on the shelf at any store. They can be skin sensitizers, respiratory sensitizers, or some of them have been associated with asthma. And then next slide. And finally, I just want to say a couple things about recyclability claims. And Judy did touch on this a little bit earlier. It is good, and it's really good to have conversations with manufacturers when you see that there's a take-back program or recycled content. Because a lot of products do have claim to have recycled content, but we really need to be evaluating everything with a critical eye. There's a lot of practical and economic challenges that can prevent the widespread recycling of things, especially plastic. So if flooring take-back program does exist, just ask for details on how much product is actually collected and how much ends up in new flooring products, especially if you're trying to estimate some metrics, some sustainability metrics based on these take-back programs. Ask what the recycled content is. Is it just limestone filler, or does it actually come from a previously used recycled product? If a product does advertise recycled plastic, just consider how much new plastic might also be used in that product, because products that contain recycled plastic often still really are going to need a substantial amount of new plastic, which continues to drive fossil fuel use and plastics associated harms. And I realize I'm kind of veering away from vinyl here, so this is more general guidance. And recycling can also just perpetuate the life cycle impacts of plastics in general by introducing legacy chemicals. And legacy chemicals, these are basically chemicals that we used to put into our flooring products. We realized that they were very hazardous. We don't want them in there. People phase them out, and then they can potentially get recycled back into new products if we're not careful. And then just grinding up flooring products to reuse and recycling can also just release microplastics into the environment. And there's just a lot of data coming out that is showing that microplastics are showing up in our bodies, and people are starting to link them to or associate them with different types of health impacts. Next slide. I think this is back to Judy.
Thanks, Ryan. So we'll wrap up, getting close here. So you can see that there's a lot of consideration. And one thing we suggest is really talking with manufacturers about the pros and cons of each product line for the various spaces where you'll be using flooring. And you don't need to use the same flooring throughout the space because different spaces may need different treatments. And here's some tips from an experienced purchaser. She suggests that first you pilot one or more flooring options in different areas to gain real life experience with the product. And in this way, you can check out the product's performance or compare different products' performances. And when you take this kind of an incremental approach to finding the best product, you can ultimately save a lot of money in case you aren't happy with the original product. As mentioned also, you can encourage manufacturers to get their products approved through Green Health Approved. And in this way, you can have an easy way to find healthier vetted products. And lastly, as Ryan said, look at the warranty to see if it covers likely problems and how long it lasts. Okay, next slide. Okay, trying to get being able to compare prices across product types is not straightforward. We tried, but both manufacturers and purchasers report that costs vary significantly based on the order size, the supplier relationships, and anticipated future business. Kind of aside, but it's also worth noting that 15 countries, including the United States, actually subsidize the plastic industry, which artificially lowers the cost of LVT and plastic flooring prices. But as demand grows for healthier products and no plastic products, hopefully prices will be coming down. And there's a few tips from an experienced purchaser. If you can narrow the choices of product lines or color palettes that you'll be using, oftentimes you can get better pricing because the manufacturers know that these products will be ordered with greater frequency. And as Ryan said, you can consider using lighter or thinner products in areas that don't need the high performance that it might need in another area. And this can save considerable dollars. And some manufacturers offer free installation support to ensure proper technique is being used. Ask about it, and if they do, take advantage of it. Next slide. So there are a lot of ways to make improvements in the health of what we're putting into our buildings. One reason products are ranked from green to red is to show that incremental improvements can be made. And perhaps you're not able to specify linoleum or the green, but you can at least move away from vinyl flooring to get out of the red by specifying a product with a higher ranking, and those improvements are worth celebrating. So at that, I think we're done, and I want to thank everybody again for attending. I think we're doing questions.
Yes.
And we also have our contact information on the next slide in case you want to reach us. And I've included my colleague, Bella Garcia, at the Center for Environmental Health, in case you have other questions that she can answer.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. And I've been looking at the chat to see if there were any messages, but I didn't see any questions. So just wondering if folks have any questions that they wanted to ask. There was a lot of information provided. So just wanted to see if anybody had any specific questions. No? Okay. Well, then, I guess
Well,
this will.
Julia, I do see that someone is asking if they're going to automatically get a copy of the presentation. So we just want to reiterate that, yes, tomorrow, everyone who registered will get a copy of today's slides along with the video recording.
And please note, if you do have questions or want to continue the conversation, please reach out to us. There has been sort of tremendous interest in the carpet and flooring area right now with purchasers. And so things are evolving, things are changing, but we really are trying to find, some really sort of healthier along the whole product life cycle, healthier options for our buyers. So thank you very much for participating. Oh, we have a couple. All right, thank you. Let's see. We have one question. In recent years, much LVT has been used in schools. What is recommended now for schools? Brian, do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, I think if you're asking what schools themselves are specifying, I can't specifically give details on what schools are specifying. I mean, we would say that this guidance, applies to really any sector. It's pretty generic guidance that's intended to apply across different sectors. I also, but while I'm, on the mic here, let me address the second question here. We definitely, so on our informed website, which is where we come up with the green to red guidance, we do have, sorry, the question is about, do we have details behind the scales we use to produce? So we do have very detailed descriptions. It's not just, a color for each product. Like there's a description within each product type of why things are ranked the way that they are. And we try to add a lot of citations. And certainly if that doesn't provide enough detail, people can reach out to us. It's a balance between, producing something that's very academic and then also something that is, actionable for a non-academic audience, but we definitely have those details available. And the methodology is also on our informed website, which I can put in the chat here.
Great, thank you.
I believe there were some people, or I think, Julie, you mentioned there are maybe some people here who do housing, affordable housing, perhaps. And Ryan, I don't know if you're prepared to speak to this, but Habitable did a really interesting study. I don't know if it was with Perkins and Will about shifting away from LVT in affordable housing because these tend to be low-income communities again and communities of color and trying to pick healthier options. And they found that these housing projects were able to shift to better products. And Ryan, I don't know if you can say any more about that.
Yeah, we've definitely done a lot with affordable housing. I was not specifically involved in the study that you're mentioning. I will say I know that people in the affordable housing sector definitely have, I mean, it's been a barrier. Like people try to specify linoleum and sometimes it gets value engineered out. That said, I know that people have successfully been able to do it. And just one example of a case where somebody was able to reduce costs. It was a new build and they were able to actually design the room to the dimensions that would essentially fit the size of the linoleum tiles so that they could reduce the amount that they had to purchase and reduce the amount of cutoff waste. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that people are using and are finding ways to use, but there are barriers to it that I've heard about.
Great, thank you. And I do know, just when we're talking about PVC, there are other organizations that have decided, not to allow PVC. Harvard University and also, Judy, what was the other one in California?
Well, the city and county of San Francisco and a new hospital through UCSF are all avoiding PVC flooring. And I believe that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's many, many more states, cities, et cetera, that have restrictions on PVC. And I just want to say Massachusetts is a great leader in this, and we're really excited and proud of what you're doing.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you very much. Any other questions or thoughts from the panel? Okay, well, I think we're a little early, but I guess we'll wrap it up if there are no more questions. And once again, please feel free to reach out to any of us if you have further questions or want to continue the conversation. And we're just thrilled that you joined us today. All right. Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
all.
Appreciate it.
Bye.